Have you ever wondered what it takes to own a historic home in Charleston, South Carolina? If you've ever visited the area, then the historic downtown architecture probably stood out the most to you. It's what makes Charleston so charming. But did you know that you can find similar homes in Somerville, Mount Pleasant, James Island, and some other places? What's up, y'all? It's Shawn, your Charleston realtor, and today I'm going to cover what it takes to own one of these highly desirable homes in downtown Charleston, and also talk about some of those other areas too. I'm going to talk about what makes a home historic, where you can find these homes, and the costs associated with purchasing one of these charming properties, because it's not all just up front. So let's dive right in. For those of you who want a piece of American history, look no further than Charleston, South Carolina. With over 350 years since its founding, this place is one of the most historic and charming cities in all of America. It's actually home to one of the largest historic districts in the entire country, and there are actually more historic buildings on the National Register than any other city in the United States. To give you perspective on just how old these homes are, the oldest house here is called the Pink House, and it's estimated to have been built sometime between 1694 and 1712. So what makes a home historic? Well, the Charleston Preservation Society has a historical marker program that marks a property as historic. To be eligible for the marker, your property needs to have been associated with one of the following: a historic place that is at least 50 years old, significant events that occurred at least 50 years ago, a significant person died at that property at least 50 years ago, or some sort of broad pattern of local, state, and national history. So pretty vague. The property in question must retain a high degree of historical integrity, and the historical marker application form must be submitted by the property owner. Many of Charleston's historic homes are influenced by architecture, so let's cover these styles just so you know what they are. So there are a lot of different architectural styles for these homes, but I really want to focus on the top four, most popular styles in Charleston. When I say most popular, I mean most popular back in like 1700 or 1800. The first style is perhaps the most famous, and it's called the Charleston Single House. In fact, this is the most iconic and unique style relating to the area. These homes are narrow and long, with the long side of the house running perpendicular to the street. They often feature two-story covered porches, and these porches typically face a garden or a courtyard. This design was intended to create maximum airflow through the house to provide relief from the hot and humid climate. They are narrow because that's how lots were divided back in the day. They really crammed these homes together, and the space for parking was not exactly a concern back in 1800. These styles of homes are typically found throughout the Charleston historic districts, but particularly in the French Quarter, south of Broad, and the boroughs. The next popular style you'll find in Charleston is the Georgian. These homes are normally massive and are characterized by their symmetrical facades, normally with brick or wood exteriors. More often than not, you'll see them built out of brick. You'll see panel doors with decorative crown pediments, and some have double-hung sash windows with small panes. This is a more formal and balanced style, often featuring classical elements like columns and some other features. So if you're walking around Charleston, you can find this style of home in areas like south of Broad and along the Battery. This style was built to showcase Charleston's early colonial wealth. These homes tend to be more expensive just because how large they are. Moving on to the third style, it's called the Federal. This was an evolution of the Georgian architecture with more refined details and a greater emphasis on these classical elements. These homes typically have a low-pitched roof with elliptical fan lights over the front door. The detailing is often more delicate and elegant compared to the robust Georgian style. You can find these styles of homes in neighborhoods like south of Broad and the boroughs. And the final style I want to mention is perhaps my most favorite, and that's the Greek Revival. These homes are characterized by bold symmetrical shapes and grand columns. You'll know it when you see it. The columns on these homes are normally modeled after something you'd see in ancient Greece. This style is absolutely stunning. It reflects the influence of ancient Greek architecture that became popular in Charleston during the early 19th century. These homes tend to be larger, and the exterior features can be really costly to maintain, which makes them a lot more expensive. You can find Greek Revival homes in many of Charleston's neighborhoods, particularly in the Battery and the boroughs. And although they don't get the same attention as downtown Charleston homes, you can still find a lot of these styles of homes in historic downtown Somerville. James Island is also known for its mix of modern and historic homes, and while it might not be as dense as downtown, there are still several areas where you can find a lot of historic homes. Riverland Terrace is perhaps one of the oldest and most historically significant neighborhoods on James Island. Secessionville is another neighborhood where you can also find these historic homes. Now in Mount Pleasant, you can find historic homes in the Old Village and Ion, among other places. So let's talk about everyone's favorite subject, and that is the price. You've probably pulled up Zillow or Redfin at some point, and you've seen the prices that the Charleston Peninsula commands. The reality of the matter, though, is that the cost of historic homes in Charleston varies widely depending on factors like location, size, style, and the home's condition. If you're looking in historic downtown Charleston, you can expect to see prices starting around $1 million, but these can easily go to $5 million and beyond depending on the neighborhood and the borough that you're in. The higher priced homes are larger, well-preserved properties that have significant historical value, and they're also in prime locations. I always found it interesting that the tour guides in Charleston can rattle off a million facts about different homes on the same street. But then when you look closer, there's actually like someone living there. The home your carriage ride tour guide is talking about is actually someone's personal residence. It's so cool to see homes preserved and passed down to another generation in this way. And there's also this like ultra luxury market of historic homes on the Charleston Peninsula. They'll typically have a lot of acreage or waterfront views or sometimes both. And you'll see those surpass that 5 million point, 5 to 10 million sometimes. So according to Redfin data, in areas like Harleston Village and the boroughs, you can find homes typically in the range of 800,000 to 2 million. But luckily, you don't need to be a millionaire to afford a historic home. So if you're looking for those historic homes in Charleston, you can find historic properties for single-family homes in the broader Charleston area as low as $700,000. Keep in mind that the average price for a single-family home in Charleston is around $646,000 as of June 2024. So it isn't much more expensive to own a historic home. You can also find fixer-upper properties that might have a lower cost, so you do have options. Though keep in mind though that it's going to cost you money to fix it up. And if you're already considering moving to Charleston and you love history, I don't think you'll regret buying a historic home here. And also, a recent trend in the Charleston Peninsula is the subdivision of larger historical homes into individual condominium units. For instance, many investors and developers have transformed these larger duplexes, triplexes, and quadplexes into individual condo units that can be purchased individually. These are a great option to own a piece of Charleston real estate at a more budget-friendly price. And as an aside, there are dozens of newer neighborhoods in the Charleston area that have sprung up over the past few decades that have attempted to replicate that Charleston-style architecture. These newer neighborhoods offer much more budget-friendly price points with modern amenities. Neighborhoods such as White Gables in Somerville or Bolton's Landing in West Ashley or even Ion in Mount Pleasant are examples of this. So let's talk about the costs associated with owning historic property. Because these are older properties, there are expenses to maintain and preserve your home. Common exterior maintenance repairs are typically fixing or replacing the roof, upgrading the foundation, or the masonry work. For roofing materials, you might need to use slate or clay tiles, which are a little bit more pricey, but they are important to preserving the historical look. And if the foundation of your home has issues, you can typically expect to pay anywhere between $5,000 and almost $60,000 to $100,000 depending on how serious the foundation issue is. And Lord knows we have foundation issues here in Charleston. These foundation issues are caused partly because of the method of construction back in the day and partly because of the heat and humidity in Charleston that makes wooden joists and beams sag, and partly because of the peninsula sinking over the course of decades or even centuries. Historic homes often feature brick or stone exteriors, and that requires special maintenance. Repairs can cost between $5 to $25 per square foot. You also need to preserve windows and doors to maintain the home's historical integrity. Restoring original windows can cost anywhere from $200 to several $1,000s per window, and custom replacements to match the original style can be even more expensive than that. If you want to pick a fight with somebody who owns a historic home in Charleston, just mention windows. For interior restoration maintenance, some typical repairs are fixing plaster walls and ceilings, because most of the historic homes actually use plaster, and so that's not a very common building material these days. So you should expect to spend anywhere from $5 to $15 per square foot to fix it. And you might need to update or replace outdated electrical systems in these older homes, and the cost really depends on the scope of work. We sometimes see these older homes needing new HVAC systems, and the modifications need to be made to fit the existing house. And you see, that is the interesting part about historical homes. Things that we are used to in modern homes were not even considered back in the day. For instance, modern homes are built to accommodate ductwork for an air conditioning system, but older homes need to be modified to run the ductwork, and then that might look strange. Other examples of this might range from the placement of a sink relative to the shower or a bath, to the height of the ceilings, or the existence of laundry rooms, or not having light fixtures in certain rooms. It's important to note that if you own a historic home, you will need to maintain historical compliance with local regulations. This is done through the BAR, or the Board of Architectural Review. Any exterior changes to historically styled homes typically require approval from the BAR, and this process can take up to 30 business days and can slow down your contractor. They could be waiting weeks or even months before starting a new project. You could be required to find contractors who specialize in historic preservation, which can be more expensive because they use specialized techniques. Think of the BAR as like a cross between an HOA and a really intrusive local government. Even if your home doesn't have an HOA, and most don't by the way, you'll still need to maintain BAR compliance. So for instance, you will be required to preserve landscapes and gardens if your home has a garden. These landscapes often include period-appropriate plants and hardscape features like fountains, walls, or pathways. Tree maintenance is important because a lot of trees on these properties are mature trees and are an integral part to the historic character of the property, not to the passerbys and the pedestrians who are trying to get around the tree while they're walking on the sidewalk. And now these older trees often require regular care and upkeep. Pruning and disease treatment is essential if you own a historic property, and that is a cost you have to bear. A lot of these properties need irrigation systems unless a previous owner has updated them, but this makes regular maintenance easier. And while we've talked about changes, improvements, and maintenance of existing properties, there's a different board that deals with the demolition of existing structures, such as walls or even sheds. You will find it very difficult to tear down existing structures unless they are newer, so you'll need to maintain it instead. I will say, all of these requirements can be a turnoff for many people, but for the people who are considering a home in these areas, you must shift your perspective from that of a homeowner with unlimited freedom to do what you want with your property to that of a homeowner who views themselves as a curator and protector of history for the generations to come. Now let's talk about home insurance and ongoing maintenance. Insuring a historic home is typically more expensive than insuring a modern home due to the cost of specialized materials and the skilled craftsmanship required to make the repairs. According to a 2022 article from the National Trust for Historic Preservation, the cost of insuring a historic home can be anywhere from 20 to 50% higher than that of a non-historic home, location dependent. Luckily, you can get federal, state, and local tax incentives to preserve historic properties that help offset the cost. On a residential property, for instance, you can receive a state income tax credit of 25% of the renovations done to your historic home, as long as it's a primary residence. In Charleston, there's a bill called the Bailey Bill, which allows for the freezing of a taxable value of a historic property at its rehabilitation level for up to 20 years. This means you can get significant property tax savings for houses undergoing substantial renovations. You can also get a 20% federal tax credit if you are a property owner who owns a historic home whose certified revisions are income producing. These tax incentives make historic preservation much more affordable for property owners in Charleston. Now, as a disclaimer, I'm not a CPA, so if you're serious about purchasing a historic home, we need to make sure the applicable incentives apply to your situation and the property that you're looking to purchase. So embracing the responsibilities of owning a historic home can seem daunting, but they're so worth it. You literally get to own a piece of history. It's no secret that these homes are highly desirable, and you literally hold the keys to protecting history. Owning a home like this means you get to experience a unique lifestyle that modern homes can't come close to replicating. Living with antique fixtures and original hardwood floors is all part of the charm. It can't be understated how cool of an opportunity it is to preserve a piece of cultural heritage. Owning a historic home is more than just having a beautiful property. It's about being part of a larger story, preserving history, and contributing to the cultural richness of one of the oldest cities in the country. It's my job as a real estate agent to help buyers who value history and want a piece of it for themselves find a historic home. I would love to earn your business and be your resource for real estate in Charleston. My contact information is always in the description below. And if you liked anything from this video, please feel free to shoot me a text, give me a call. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.